Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 4 of the Blasty Cast podcast. As usual, I am your host, Mike Gould from flamesnation.ca. I'm joined today by my co-host, Noah Adler, and today, folks, we have a very special episode for you. We talked last week to Rico Fata on our show, and this week we have another fantastic guest coming on the show. And Noah, I'm just going to give you the chance to introduce this guest because I know it means a lot to you, so go right ahead.
I'm not even sure if this guy does need an introduction, to be honest, but we'll give him one anyway. So he is, he by the way, he was a former captain of this team, and he is the man, he is the myth, he is the legend. He is also one of my childhood heroes. His name is Craig Conroy. Connie, how's it going?
I'm good. How are you guys doing today?
You know, we're doing great. I don't know if I said it already, but we are live on location at the Marteloup Brewery, our podcast sponsor, and we're just super happy to be out and about right now, having the chance to chat with somebody who's been in the Flames front office for 10 years now, played for the Flames for another 8 years. We're really happy to have you on, and I guess the first thing that we just want to talk to you about today is it's been sort of an interesting month. I guess it's been a month, since the Flames came out with a jersey that looks awfully similar to the one that you wore when you were first named captain of the team. And it's the jersey that our podcast is named after, the black Blasty horsehead jersey. And, we just want to hear your take on that jersey coming back into the Flames rotation because we're huge fans of it, but we want to hear your take of it too.
Well, it's amazing. I remember when I was here, people were lukewarm on it, actually. It was one of those things. But probably the last 2 years, everywhere I go, all they do is talk about, and I didn't even, to be honest, I call it the horse head. I didn't even know it had a name. So when people are saying Blasty, I'm like, what are they talking about? I had to ask Peter Hanlon. I'm like, Peter, everyone's mentioning this thing Blasty. Is that the name of the jersey? He's like, the new generation, that's what they call it. So, for me, it was one where, coming in, that was the jersey we were wearing. And I think at the time I didn't really think much about it. And then, people really wanted to kind of go back and, get back to the Flaming Sea jersey. But over the last 2 years, people are always saying the hardest jersey to find is Blasty, the horsehead. And I'm like, really? You guys liked it? And amazing how many people are actually like, yeah, this is the coolest jersey. We need to bring it back. And, talking to Peter Hanlon, you guys actually were a big part of bringing it back. So you should give yourselves a little pat in the back because, going through, people were talking about what jersey should be next. But, I think you guys going out there, putting it out, how much you wanted it back and kind of bringing it back to life. So, for me, it's funny because every time I'm in the scouting meetings, we're in the bigger meeting room. And on the wall is a picture of me in Blasty. With all the captains are there, and that's the jersey I'm in. So, I actually like seeing it. I'm looking forward to seeing it on the ice and can't wait to see the guys. It's going to be fun.
So you first arrived here in at the deadline in 01 in the trade for Corey Stillman. At that time, it was Save the Flames, and the organization was doing everything they could to save the team. So what were your feelings when coming here to Calgary at that time?
To be honest, I was a little disappointed. St. Louis, we had just won a President's Trophy the year before. We got knocked out in the first round. The team was going really well again. And, I wanted a chance at a Stanley Cup. And when I got traded, I was actually sitting, we had a back-to-back game. We were in Philadelphia, and I got the call. And it was, I think when you first get the call, you're always in shock. And you're like, really? The trade deadline was 25 minutes ago, but I was in the queue and sure enough, I got the call from Larry Plow to come up to his room, hotel room. And I was a little disappointed, to be honest with you. And, we were going in to play Columbus. I flew into Columbus, met some of the guys. Brian Strudel and Mike Burke picked me up. And then, it was one of those where you're just like, you're not even sure what to do. And then you look at the standings, and obviously, even if we won every game, we weren't going to make the playoffs. So, on that front, it was disappointing. But when I got to the city and started, going around and seeing a little people, even though Eric Francis killed me in the media. The media was having a field day with me. Actually, they just, I was a third line checker in St. Louis, and you got rid of your leading scorer on the team. So, I understand. Hey, what the heck are they bringing this guy in for? How is that going to be any different? So, and then with the transition, Don Hay, I literally just am on the ice at a pregame skate with Don Hay. We come off, and he gets let go. So there was a lot of stuff. And then when I got back to Calgary to find out it was Save the Flames, I'm like, I didn't even know the Flames were in trouble of leaving. Like, this is crazy. So, I think for first 14 games, it was a little bit, I wasn't sure what was going to happen. But the one good thing is Greg Gilbert had me in Worcester, where I had tons of points. I was in a different role for him in Worcester. So to kind of come back and he said, hey, I'm going to play it. You're going to get power play time. You're going to play a ton, and you're going to be a big part of this thing moving forward. So once I heard that definitely made me feel much better. And then, as I start to get to know the city in the year and a half, you're like, you see the passion and the love for the team. So, I think I warmed up to it, and I think they started to warm up to me a little bit too.
So, Craig, you come into Calgary, and there's this hot shot young winger, sort of in his sort of 6th or 7th year with the team, and he's sort of everybody's favorite, and that's Jarome Iginla, and you come in and what's your impression of this guy who's the guy in Calgary? How did you hit it off with Jarome? Did you hit it off with him right away? And I mean, I assume by the time you guys got to 2004, you guys were probably best buds, eh?
Well, it didn't start out great. We actually, he jumped me in St. Louis and maybe beat me up in St. Louis. So it didn't start off great. When I got in, I thought, Tyson Nash said, hey, I played with Iggy and Kamloops. This guy is one of the nicest guys you're ever going to meet. Absolutely. But I think with everything going on, the way the season was going, Don Hay and him were very tight. And for him to get let go, it was kind of a real cold reception for me. And even one of his comments, I think, in the paper was, we have enough checkers. So I was like, oof, this guy, for being the nicest guy I've ever heard, I don't know if he's really that nice. The guy that was probably the best to me was Val Burry, and he was out of here after the end of the year. So it was one of those where you're like, yeah, this guy. But I knew how good Jarome was, how good a player he was. And, it just, I think at the start, it wasn't a great welcome into Calgary from Jarome. But, in the thing, he wasn't like over the top mean or rude or anything like that. But I think it was just lukewarm, if I'd have to say it best. But I think by the end of the season, though, it was pretty good. We had the end of the year party. You're trying to meet everybody, get along. But, as it went from that first year, I think when I got thrown on his line, Mark Savard got hurt, unfortunately for him. A huge bonus for me. And then, off Jarome and I went, and then he won the Rock Richard and the scoring title that year. And unfortunately, we didn't make the playoffs, but you could see I think that he was already a star player. And I think he went from star to superstar status that year. And to be able to be a part of that a little bit and on his line and watch it, as a young player going through that stage and, and then you see how good a person he really is and how nice and fun and competitive. And our families became, we did everything together. We hung out all the time and became real good, best friends. It was quite a transition from how it really started to maybe where we are today, for sure.
So before the 04 campaign, you gave Jarome the C. For those who don't know the story, could you tell the story again for us, please?
I was going into my last year of my contract. Shane Doan actually just got named captain in Phoenix, and being such good friends with Iggy, I knew it bothered him. He talked about it quite a bit. It was one of those where he was, he's like, I cannot believe Shane's captain. He deserves it, but I can't believe it. So, he was throwing out some subtle hints. I think he wanted to be captain. So, I think I went in to see Daryl and I said, hey, Daryl, I think with everything going on in my situation, and I think Jarome's the real captain of this team anyways. But, if I was to give Jarome the C, would Jarome get the C? Because I didn't want to give it to Daryl and have it go somewhere else. And Daryl was good. Daryl said, no, you're my captain, Craig. If you, we're good. I said, no, I think it's time for Jerome. I think this is the right thing for the team and the right thing for everybody involved. And I think it's going to help Jerome take him to the next level, because Jerome worried about his own game, I think, at that point. Like, he was so focused on what he was doing all the time. I said, I think this could be a good thing for Jerome too. And he's like, well, if you want to do it, go tell him, you guys talk it out, and then come back and see me. So I remember I went in, it was Marty and him were in the steam room, and I went in the steam room and I said, hey, Iggy, just been thinking, I'd like to give you the captaincy. And he was like, didn't hesitate. He wanted it. So I was like, you could have said like, no, like, you're fine, Craig. But nope. He said, really? I would love to be the next captain. So I said, okay. So I leave the steam room, go back into, go into Daryl's office, and hey, I'd still want to be an assistant captain, but Jerome wants to be the captain. And that was pretty much it. I mean, we, my wife thought I was crazy, and it is, it is to be a captain of the NHL team is a dream come true. I mean, to play in the NHL is a dream come true, but to be a captain, and it's not as easy as people think, because we all have egos, we all feel, but at the time I just thought, you know what, this is probably best thing for the team, and best thing for Jerome and the way he's going to go. And I gave it up. You don't see it that often. Usually you see people taking it away, and I think that's not the right thing either. I mean, if the guy wants to give it, great. If you take it away, there becomes a lot of problems in that locker room. So I didn't want to have that. I just wanted to win and try to have the best year. And then all of a sudden we have the way the season went, it worked out better than I ever thought.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. And I mean, you talk about that 2004 run, and those are four pretty good teams you guys went up against. Obviously, the Canucks in the first round, and then playing against Detroit, San Jose before getting to Tampa. I think a lot's made of those playoffs as Jelena scoring those series clinching goals in Game 7s against Vancouver, Detroit. But just overall, looking at those series individually, what do you think was the hardest test for you guys en route to Tampa Bay?
I think obviously the Vancouver series, going all the way to Game 7 to overtime to win it. I think we got a break with Bertuzzi being suspended for the playoffs. That helped us. That was definitely a hard series, but I think going into Detroit with I don't even know if they had 5-6 Hall of Famers on that team. They won the President's Trophy that year. They're the number one team in the NHL. And for me, Detroit knocked us out. We had great teams in St. Louis, and they knocked us out every year. So, going in, they're my nemesis. I hated Detroit. I wanted nothing more than to beat Detroit. And when we went in there and we actually won that series and that was the best I've ever felt shaking a guy's hand, because I've been on the other side of shaking the Yzerman and Shanahan and Hull and Draper and all those guys so many times. It drove me crazy. But to be able to knock them off, I really felt like once we got by them, I thought we're gonna do this thing. Not that it was going to be easy, because then we go against San Jose, and then ultimately the best team in the East that year was Tampa. So it wasn't going to be easy. But I thought when we beat Detroit, that was the ultimate for me.
So you get to the end of that run, and it's just an amazing run, and there's nothing that can be taken away from just how great a run that was. And you go into that off season, and like you said, it's the last year of your contract, and everybody knows that you end up signing a 4-year deal with the Kings, which essentially turned into a 3-year deal because of the lockout. But I think I've read just about that negotiation and how it was just tough. And I read an interview with you where you were talking to people, and they said, well, it's uncertain, just take the money. But what was I just want to hear it maybe again from you, just how tricky it was that summer, considering all your options, knowing that maybe Calgary wasn't going to be one of them after that run.
Well, I think you always thought you were going to come back. That team was going to come back, but the 04 ruined everything for me, because our owners, they just, part of everything that was going on, one of the decisions that was made, which I see on this side of it now, is, let's wait and see what it is, and then make a decision on signing guys. So I talked to Daryl, and he said, hey, we're not going to sign players right now. We're going to, we might be able to do a 1-year deal. How's it going with you on far? I said, well, I got some 4-year offers. He's like, pretty much you have to take it. I was 32 at the time. And he just said, I wish we could do something differently, Craig. Unfortunately, this is where we're at. We don't know what's going to happen this year. And, I decided, okay, it was, I felt like Daryl wanted to do something with me here, but just couldn't. And I totally understood. I mean, what was going on with the economics of hockey, and it's just disappointing because I wanted to come back more than anything. And then, I just remember getting off the phone thinking, well, told my wife, we're definitely not going back to Calgary. We got to start exploring some of these other options. And Dave Taylor played at my same college growing up. We knew Dave Taylor for a long time, and he was actually the first person to call. And it always, when we go into free agency now, when we want a person, I know it means so much to be that first call. And I think that's what it ultimately, and a 4-year deal doesn't hurt, So, but I do think I felt like that was the best fit for me. And unfortunately, it wasn't Calgary, and just had to make that decision and sign with LA.
I just want to ask you about a couple of your teammates when you were with the Kings, because, you had a couple guys there who you played with who are some of my favorite players growing up. And I just want to talk to you about Anze Kopitar and Mike Camilleri, because Mike Camilleri is a guy who you played with again with the Flames down the road. And then Kopitar, just one of my favorite two-way guys, a huge part of their Stanley Cup wins. I just want to get your insight on what those guys are like playing with them.
The funny thing is, Kopi, when he came in his first training camp, they were talking about him going back. But instantly I said, this guy is going to be taking my job. He was, even at 18 years old, I just said, wow, this is a total package. There's not many things he couldn't do at that age. I remember, I don't go to many rookie games or whatever, but they had one over against Phoenix, at the practice rink. So I said, I got to go watch this guy. Like, this guy is just so much better than anybody else I've seen as a young kid coming in. I've never seen a player like that where he just looks like he's going to come in and play. They sent him back the first year, and you're like, this isn't going to take long for him to get back. And the next year he came in, and he was even, to say he was even that much better his next year, it's hard to believe, but he was, and then, watching him, he was an NHL player from the day he started. Power play, penalty kill, his strength on pucks, everything he did, his attention to detail in practice. You're just like, this guy's going to be a star. And definitely, I kind of joked around that first year that he was going to take my job, and he took it the next year. So it was just a matter of time, but he was that good, that quick. I mean, that was one where you couldn't believe it. So, and then he goes on to win the cups, and he's still an amazing player today.
And then with Cammy, who you played with both in LA and Calgary, what was that familiarity like when he came back in, after you'd already played with him a couple of years in LA?
You know what? Cammy was, he's a cocky, he's one of the cockiest little guys you've ever met, but he loves scoring goals. I mean, he's like, I call him a hockey nerd because everything he does is about getting better, about scoring, about being the best, about winning. I mean, when you go to those playoffs, you look at his playoff series, and I text him or called him when he was playing Pittsburgh. I go, you and Crosby head to head. I'm like, you're going to have to outplay the big boy. And he's like, that's what I'm going for. I want to outplay Crosby in the series. And that was his mentality. He wanted to score. He wanted to be that guy. He wanted to be the guy that had the puck on his stick at the end of the game and to finish it off. And to see him as a young guy and be a part of that, and then have him come here to Calgary with us and getting to play with him. I think the year he was trying to score his 40th goal. We had a play set up, and David Moss, I go, Mosser, I'm going to win the draw to you. Cammy's going to slide back door. We got about a minute left. He should be wide open. We set the play up. If you ever get Cammy on here, ask him about it. He's wide open back door. Mosser, what's he do? Shoots the puck into the pads, away we go. And, Cammy didn't end up scoring his 40th, I think, that year. But he was just one of those guys that, then he went to Montreal. They had the great runs. I just think he was one of the he just loved to play. I mean, I even tried. We got him back from Montreal. I tried to sign Cammy again. Little shit wouldn't just sign with us again. It was pissing me off, and then even when it was all done, I think I wanted to kind of to bring him back, and it just wasn't working out. I don't know. He's an Eastern guy from Ontario, and I think he wanted to get closer to home, and that's why he signed with the Devils. And then to bring him back again, it was one of those things where you just kind of laugh. When he was in LA, we were talking about bringing him back. Then he went in, goes into Edmonton, and he still could play. That was the thing. Even when I think, when guys get towards the end of their career, I thought he was the best fourth line player. He was getting healthy scratch in Edmonton. I thought they should have signed him again, I couldn't figure it out. You got to put players in situations where they thrive. And even Cammy playing center and doing all that, you look at his stats, they're pretty good. If they would have given him more of a chance on the power play, you got to put players in position. But Cammy's still a great friend of mine. And, I think he'd be an unbelievable coach. But he's got his business, the BioSteel stuff going. And, he's too busy to do anything with hockey right now.
Well, yeah, we'd love to get Cammy on the show at some point, and I was so disappointed when he went to Edmonton, just growing up watching him. But yeah, oh well. Anyway, Noah, go ahead.
So you then came back to Calgary in the middle of the 07 campaign, and then you played 4 more seasons here until retiring in the middle of the 10-11 season. So then what transitioned you into the AGM role that you've had for the last decade?
It was one where I was almost 40 years old, 39 years old, going on, so I knew at that point it was coming to an end. It's been a good career. I got my 1,000th game in. Kind of would have liked to finish that season. It's always disappointing because I didn't know when my last game was. That was the hard part. But that's hockey, and you see the ups and downs, and to be able to play 1,000 games and to play one game was a dream for me. So to play 1,000 was a bonus. That was never in my wildest dreams would I thought that. And obviously Ken King at the time with Murray Edwards, was communicating with them back and forth. And, in the transition, I had some opportunities, a little bit on the TV and, talking to different people in that. I had an opportunity to go back and coach my college team at Clarkson, which was very appealing at the time too. And then, it was one where, I had this job to be special assistant to the general manager at the time, assistant general manager, acting general manager, I guess it was, Jay Feaster. It was the longest title you've ever had on your business card ever. I remember I actually went in and told them I was going to take the Clarkson job. I was going to go in and, Clarkson offered me a 5-year deal. So I told them, I said, I think I'm going to go in and, I hugged the girls goodbye, and I was getting ready saying goodbye to everybody. And I went down to see Ken King and just to say thank you for everything. And next thing you know, Ken being Ken, Murray Edwards was on the phone. He wasn't in town, but he was on the phone. And, they kind of said, hey, what's your next goal? I said, well, my goal, I guess that I never did, was win a Stanley Cup. They you can't do that in media. You can't do that at Clarkson. And I said, you're right. Good point. But, I said, I don't know. I said, I don't know what I want to do, I guess. And they just kind of talked to me, and then we laid out a little bit, hey, we see an opportunity here for you on the, management side, and would you be willing to do it? And then, we see this as a role, and you can still have your chance to win a Stanley Cup for the Calgary Flames. And that's the ultimate goal always, is to win that cup. So pretty much I walked in, I was leaving, I walked out, I was calling Clarkson and everybody just saying, hey, I've decided to take the job in Calgary.
Do you possibly want to be a GM at some point in the future?
Yeah, that's always your goal. I mean, Brian Burke says there's people that want to ride in the bus and people who want to drive the bus. And, I think I want to be that guy. I want to, I've gone through every stage. I've tried to learn as much as I can, the scouting, recruiting free agents out of college, junior. I've done a few contract negotiations, but Chris Snow mostly. I think everyone in the office fights for every little thing. Everybody wants to do everything. So, you'd love to do it all. You really would. You'd love to be a part of that. But, I ran the team in Abbotsford for 1 year. We had a great run. And then unfortunately we lost to, Grand Rapids in the playoffs. But it's all those things, to be a part of it and do every little thing in the organization. And, that's when I talk to people, how do you become a GM? They said, well, you want to touch every aspect and know from scouting to, development to, contract negotiations, everything that you can learn and move forward. And on the business side, Ken King was amazing. He let me go sit in meetings early on and be a part of it and get a feel. So, you feel like you have a good grasp. And in the end, hey, it's like you want to put that team together. And, I love fantasy baseball. Loved all the fantasy stuff, even when we were playing. We do all that. And you want to one day make that final call because, in the end, Brad's unbelievable, gives us a ton of input and we can be a part of it, but he gets to make the final call on everything. If you're going to hire a coach, you get an input, but in the end, Brad makes that call. If, you make a deal, Brad's the final say on all that. So, one day I want to be the final say, but, right now the goal is, I think if we win a Stanley Cup here, that helps propel me into, maybe a job somewhere else one day, being a GM.
Right. I just want to talk to you. Oh, and by the way, before we go any further, you mentioned Chris Snow, and I just wanted to make a shout out because today I believe Chris Snow is going in for a operation to implant a feeding tube, and we just wanted to wish him all the best here at the Blasty Cast. One of the just the strongest people in Calgary. Connie, what's it like working with a guy like Chris Snow?
It's amazing to see. I mean, he's got on the analytics side, on the, he thinks differently than everybody else. He's got a different way of thinking and, his input and what he's done. I mean, we have a thing called, I don't even know if I'm supposed to tell, but Flames Vision that he's created, and with all the analytics, is pretty impressive. I mean, you'd almost like people to see it and kind of go through all the hard work he's done. This thing it doesn't just pop up overnight. He's continually improving it, working on it, and trying to make it better. And, I give him a ton of credit when, all the stuff he's going through, he doesn't miss a beat, whether it's the contract negotiations, if it's to help with anything on Flames Vision. It's funny. One of the scouts texted me today. He goes, I can't get on Flames Vision. I'm like, yeah, Snowy's got the he's got the operation today. So he's out, but without Snowy, I don't know what we do with Flames Vision. So, it's one where he's just came in and he brings a different perspective. I think when I can talk to him, I can do it from a player's side, what it's like to be there. He takes it from a different perspective. And I think it's great, to have all those different kind of ideas and what he's done and what he's going through with his family. It's pretty, he's a brave guy. I talked to him the other day and, just wishing him luck on the operation today. And it was funny because his wife just actually texted me. So he's probably out of surgery now. I didn't see the whole text, but, my thought and prayers with him and his family at all time. I mean, when he was diagnosed a year and a half ago, it did seem grim at the time. Fortunately, he's been able to get in that trial and things have gone well, but not quite perfect. So, the feeding tube in today, and he was surprisingly optimistic and upbeat. I mean, and I think a lot of people think he'd be down and going through such a hard time. It's not. And I still give him shit. Like, we don't agree on players all the time. I treat him the exact same way I have before to the way he is now. That's the one thing. I'm giving him shit all the time. I don't like this idea. I love this idea. Don't like this one. He's like, you're an idiot, Craig. We got to do this. So we still have those battles like a brother. And, to work next to him for the last, 8 or 9 years, it's been special. And he's brought a different perspective for how I think. So it's great. And, I just want to see him back down at the Dome as soon as possible.
I just got one more question for you, Craig, before we get to the fan questions here. One of my favorite moves that the Flames have made in recent years was one that you guys made last summer. And it's funny because I absolutely hated it when it happened. But now a year later, I'm a big fan of how it's all turned out. And I just want to ask you guys about what it was like sort of identifying a guy up north in Milan Lucic who you could maybe bring in the right circumstances and maybe add something to the team that maybe wasn't present before, knowing, this is you guys making a move with the Oilers, bringing in a guy who, has a no-move clause in his contract, but what was your rationale behind making that deal? How do you think about how it's played out, and do you anticipate maybe that no-move clause being an issue in the expansion draft?
First, I think when we were talking at the end of the year where we felt, Zadorov, I don't remember, you guys remember the playoff series. Yeah. I was getting pissed. He was just kind of taking liberties on all our guys. He was pretty much doing whatever he wanted. And he was going off the ice one time and he kind of gave the fans the arms up in the air, kind of getting the crowd going. And I don't think we had a real answer to that. And it was one of those where we're like, when we lost Derek England, people, unfortunately, I would have loved to have Derek back. Because I think when you're a player, you think, well, there's not really much fighting, this, that. It's a lot more of how you feel as a player. Like, if you feel safe and you feel like you can do whatever you want at any moment, at any time, and you got guys that have your back. I think guys have your back, but then when you have a nuclear deterrent like Derek England or a Milan Lucic, I play with Tony Twist. I've been very lucky to play with lots of tough guys, and they really keep everything calmed down. And it's not just fighting. It's like physically, if you don't have guys running you all the time, makes a huge difference. So when we were looking at how we can do this, James Neal came in, signed with us. It just wasn't going well with James. I think he wanted to play more power play time, maybe higher in the lineup, probably with Johnny and Monty. And, Lindholm came in and just played so well. You couldn't split that up. And, the lines were kind of set. And I think he wasn't overly happy, and then I think with Luch up there, we were looking for that type of player. So when you kind of look at everything around, there's not many players like Luch. And we thought if he could get out of there, get a fresh start. And it's funny because I actually I went out with Camilleri to dinner when he was playing there, and Luch came in and sat behind us. And so he came over. This was a couple years before. And I got talking to him and we were telling stories, Brett Hull stories. And, I'm like, geez, this guy, just a good guy. You had a presence. And I talked to Cammy about him. And then Jerome and, what's he like? And I go, we're looking for a presence. And he said, and I guess the last point of all this is Jeff Ward was there and had him in Boston. So I went down. I said, hey, if we can do this, it's going to the optics aren't going to look great. People are going to say it's a bad contract. They're going to say Luch's numbers are down. But I know how it is with a coach. If you can make a player feel good and put them in a situation to succeed, that's what you have to do. And I said, unless we're going to bring Luch in and play him, like if we want to play Luch on the fourth line, that doesn't work. Like that just doesn't work. Like that's not who he is. And Wardo said, hey, we're going to get him on one of the power plays, probably the second power play, obviously. And then we're going to get him playing. We're going to get him. And I think I can work with him and we can get him back. Maybe not 25 goal scorer, but if we can get 10 to 12 goals, that would be, what we want. And with his presence and his physical game and what he brings, what I guess I really didn't realize how important he is to the locker room. If I can put it in context, Peter Hanlon and I were talking the other day, and he actually said, how Jerome was, his presence in the locker room? Luch is almost the same. Not quite Iggy here, because Iggy was in his prime, and Iggy was, he was Jerome. Iggy was Iggy, but I said, he's just a step under. I'm like, really? That much? Because I don't get to see that, and those guys are down there all the time. I'm like, that's impressive. And then as the season started getting along, and the one thing I can say is he comes to practice every day, hardest worker. If they blow the whistle and do a lap, he does the full lap. You see some guys, they do 3/4 of the lap. They skate. Him and Gio look like they're on a full out sprint, and I think when they do that, it kind of carries over. So, to have Luch come in, we knew it wasn't going to look optically. It didn't look great. I knew people were going to do it, but when you think about what we needed on the team and how we were going to move forward, it just seemed like a good fit for us. And to make a deal with Edmonton's a little weird. So, to be able to do that. And then, obviously James Neal got off to a great start and we're like, oh,
Yeah.
but what Luch was doing for us was just as important. So in the end, it all worked out. And then to see that, the playoff Luch had and what he brings to the team and what he means to here. And he just loves the city. I think, and whenever he picks up whenever he gets the puck, you hear the Luch. I'm like, they love him, so I feel better that now the cities might've embraced him. And I knew it was probably like when they brought me here, like I said earlier, it doesn't look great from the outside, but it's all the intangibles you're seeing behind the scenes is part of the reason we brought him in.
Well, I tell you what, Craig, just me and Noah, and I'm going to let Noah get into the fan questions here in just a sec, but the number one guy, I think Noah and I would both agree, from the team right now, who we would have on the podcast in an instant if we could get him on, is Milan Lucic, because he just means a lot to I think he means a lot to the team, and just in terms of what he brought. He started scoring those goals at the end of the year, and he has, I think one thing that's underrated about Luch is just how good of a passer he is. He just has that great vision on the ice, and then just to be such a big part of the room, like you said, just the number one guy, and I think he's a great ambassador for the city. So we're going to get into the fan questions now. Noah, get into it. Go ahead.
So the first question here, Craig, is from Treebs at @JTreebs. What's your favorite story about Mika?
I mean, Mika had a million stories. I mean, that's I think it's when Mika came in, he would be in the locker room or whatever, and we'd be talking. I'd sit we sat pretty close to each other, so we'd kind of be talking. And then the first couple times the media came in, he said he didn't speak English. I was like, what? What's he saying over there? He'd be like, no English. The media would be crowding around him, and he would just always be like, no, I don't know English, Connie, no English. Another one, I mean, that was one of the things, but we had maybe a rookie dinner in LA, and we're having a good time. And for some reason, Mika thought he was going to wrestle Jerome. And I'm telling you, it was the worst thing I've ever seen. He manhandled him like he was a 5-year-old boy.
Oh my gosh.
The only bad thing is it pissed Mika off because it's embarrassing. Jerome's a strong man.
Yeah.
And Mika might have had a little bit too much to, and the other time, Mika had so many. Sometimes he loved his Swedish chew, and he'd have it in, and that's what he did between periods. And a couple times he's like, Craig, I have the chew in still. I'm like, what? So, he's on the ice. He's like, I gotta get to the bench. I'm like, well, just go before the TV timeout. He goes, I'll just wait for the TV timeout. But, Mika was so calm, so cool and collective. You wouldn't know if he gave up 8 goals. He never showed up his teammates. He just liked to have a good time, play, and, he wanted to be the best. So, and that was the one thing I think people didn't realize how competitive he really was, even in practice, and he could sit there. He would just stretch for in the split for about 45 minutes. And I'm thinking, God, it just hurts my groins thinking about it. But, it's just a great teammate, a good person. But if you wanted to track Mika down right now, probably the only person that can ever talk to him is Jamie McLennan. I got a call from one of the teams he played for in the lockout, and they had a check for him, a bonus check or whatever. And they said, we don't know where to send it. I said, I can send him a message. We had everybody in the Flames reaching out to him. All they want to do is send you money. And I don't know if you ever got the money or not. I doubt it though.
Well, I tell you what, because I was talking to your guys' director of marketing, Ryan Popowich, the other day, and he was saying that last year when Mika popped up in the Dome out of nowhere, they were just as surprised as everybody else was. They had no idea he was coming, and if they had to put up a video that they had already made years before, and if they'd known he was coming, they would have put something together. That's sort of how elusive he is, eh?
Oh, he's tough to nail down. Like, yeah, you don't know where he is. I mean,
Yeah.
to get a hold of this guy, I would love to have him come back. I would have loved, of course, I was on the road. Of course, I heard he was in the Dome, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
Because the one thing about Mika, I mean, he's just a great teammate, a good guy, and lots of fun. So if he was in town, I know Jamie, Peter Hanlon, and all these other people, probably went out with him and had a good time. But yeah, Mika was a classic, and I didn't know what to expect when he got here.
Yeah, we gotta get 34 up to the Raptors very soon, Craig.
I agree.
Yeah. Okay, Noah, go ahead.
So the next question is from Chris Chepbill. I hope I got that right. If I didn't, I apologize. At Cheblinski on Twitter. So he asks, who was the toughest opponent in that run?
And I mean, just to add on to that, because we sort of asked a question similar to that earlier, but maybe is there a specific player who was really tough to go up against in that run?
That's a good question. I thought the Naslin line with Morse, they were good in that first series. Obviously, Vinny's line, that whole power play in Detroit when they got moving around, I was like, oh boy, here we go. I mean, the Hall of Fame power play. That was one of those where you were just like, you've got to be kidding me. But I think overall, I think there was some obviously Hatcher kind of knocking guys out of our series against Detroit with Lombardi, and he's always a big man, but to see Jerome fight him, and that's just what Jerome did. He had those fights in every series. It was always but I can't think of one particular player, but I think there was just more like groups of Matthias Olin was hard in that first series too. I thought he had a good series against us, so there was definitely in each series, there was a group of guys that were always a huge challenge for us.
Okay. And Noah, go ahead. What's your last question?
So the last question comes from my friend who's going to probably freak out when you answer it in excitement. Is from Will Shepard at WShep1995. He asks, what's your favorite memory of playing with Jerome?
Favorite memory playing with Jerome? Oh, man, that's a tough one. There's so many. You're trying to you know what? I mean, to see all those things, to see him kind of the scoring lead. I remember he wanted to win the Rock Richard. We were going into Anaheim, so we're out to dinner the night before, and Iggy's like, I really want to catch Ovechkin and those guys. And, for the Rock Richard, he goes, I want to beat him, but I definitely want to catch him. So we're in Anaheim. We don't have a lot of success in Anaheim. Obviously, you guys know better than anybody. But we go in there. I remember I had a breakaway. I turned around and passed it to him. And, that really doesn't make the other team very happy. So, I mean, and they were doing everything in their power. And to see him score that goal. But I think after every goal celebration, you go into the piles, always took his mouthpiece out. And then just those little interactions. And whether it was his first goal, his 1,000th point, he always had that same excitement for that point. For whatever it was, he was so excited when he got points, and score and we win. And, he didn't care who scored. And that was the other thing. He was just as exciting on the bench if, Mike Camilleri scored or whoever. And that's what made him so genuine and such a good person. And I think just all those times with his family and all the holidays and, the one thing about Jerome is nobody can lose more phones than Jerome Iginla.
More phones?
Nobody. Phones. Like literally. Like we'll be on a trip. We'll go. I'll tell you a quick story about Jerome and his phones. So we fly. We have a 4-day trip. He loses his phone right away. We're like, where did his phone go? He always has to go back on the plane, find the phone. Can't find the phone. So we go on the trip, we come home, he has to go get a new phone. He gets the new phone. We go down to Nawab, we're having East Indian, and he's like, Craig, I can't find my phone. I'm like, the new phone? He goes, yeah, the new phone. So, okay. We go back in, we come out, his new phone's in the street. It's broke. Someone ran over it. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me, Jerome. So what's he do? He's got to go get another phone. He gets the third phone. So he gets the third phone. We come back. We're on the plane again. And we're in the plane. And all of a sudden, something's like making a noise in his seat. We kind of go down through the back of his seat under. You can kind of reach your hand in there. His phone fell in there. So, I mean, in probably a 7-day period, this guy's got 3 phones. Now he's found his old phone. He's got a new phone, and he's got a broken phone somewhere. But, I mean, if he didn't lose his phone once a trip, it would be shocking to me.
Well, I mean, when you're making $7 million a year, I guess you can afford to have 100 phones.
Well, I think he had a phone deal. I think he had a deal with one of the phone companies, so they were always free. So it was good to be Jerome in Calgary.
No kidding. Well, I think that just about wraps it up. Noah, do you have anything else you want to just say?
Yeah, you know what? I would quickly like to share a memory I have from when I was a kid, just quickly with Craig, and why he means so much to me as a kid growing up. So I remember it was always you and Jerome as the last 2 off the ice during warm-ups. Because, I mean, again, my dad and I at that time couldn't afford the lower level seats. So we always set up in the sport check zone, which is the 3rd level. So we'd always come down. It was you and Jerome, the last 2 off the ice, and you stopped by the entrance into the locker room and signed autographs. And I was lucky to be now one of those kids, and you signed my autograph 3 times. And again, it's the stuff like that why you and Jerome meant so much to me in my childhood. So thank you for that. And one more thing I quickly want to share. So the 3rd time I got your autograph, Craig, you came up to me, and it was near the Zamboni entrance. You grabbed my hat, and you were like, "Hey, wait a minute! I think I remember signing your hat."
And Noah actually has that hat here today. He's gonna. There it is.
Do you see it, by the way?
Oh yeah, that's awesome. You know what? Noah, I'm loving the jersey too.
Yeah. That's the number 22 right there. So
well, everyone always asks me what number I think like of myself, because I finished with 24. Obviously, when I came back, Lankow has it, but I'm number 22. If I sign anything now, it's all, unless it's a card or something, I sign 24 if it's a 24 card. But in my mind, that's the jersey, and that's what I think of myself as number 22. I love it.
Yeah. Very last thing I'm going to ask you before we go. I have a picture here of you and Jerome Iginla. I don't know if you can see it with the Mohawks. And I think it's a great style. Have you and Jerome, is that something that you would ever want to go back to? And have you ever sort of put the little whisper in Johnny's ear? Maybe he should try that with Monahan out there, or even Milan Lucic. I know he does some crazy things with his hair sometimes, so I think you should really look into that.
I think I'm going to bring that up to him. You know what? Jerome just shaves his head now all the time.
Yeah.
So if we were going to do anything, he'd make me shave my head, and I'm worried my hair might not all grow back. So, but I'm going to tell the boys we're going to need some Mohawks next year. I like it. I forgot about that. That's a great pick.
Well, I tell you what, Milan Lucic, love him a lot, but I never want to see the butter hair ever again. The the bright yellow, it haunts my dreams. Anyway, once again,
I'm gonna try to get Luch on for you guys.
Please, that would be amazing. We would love to talk to Milan. Please let us know. Yeah. In the meantime, this has been episode 4 of the Blasty Cast podcast with none other than former Flames captain and current assistant general manager Craig Conroy. Thank you once again for coming on the show today, Craig.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Okay, everybody. We're we're reporting to you live from Marteloup Brewing Company. Come back here. What's the address again here, Noah? 3528 18th Street North or Southwest. 3523 18th Street Southwest. Come back to Marteloup Brewery. Great grapefruit ale here. And once again, everybody, have a blasty day. There we go. Thank you very much, Craig. That was fantastic.
No problem, guys. Yeah, I'll talk to Luch too, see what he's got going.
Oh, that'd be awesome. That'd be awesome. Let us know. Thank you very much.
Now that he wants to fight that YouTuber.
Oh man, we might have to include that bit in the outtakes. I'm gonna tell you.
Oh yeah.
Here's the announcement on the winning goal. Tempur carpet